Welcome back to another Out of Spec Reviews video. I'm your host Jordan, and I have with me the EQE SUV 500 4MATIC. There's a lot of terminology, I hope you like three-letter acronyms. This is not the AMG version that Ryan tested a few weeks ago. This is the just spicy non-AMG one, really. Dual motor, permanent magnet, 402 horsepower, 300 kilowatt. So be interesting to see how this does on this range test. Again, we are in Wellington. If you're not familiar with a range test, leave from here, charge to 100%, drive up north into Wyoming, and then drive east towards basically Nebraska. And this is the perfect weather, honestly. We've got 70 degrees, right about 70, 69 degrees, and no wind. I mean, maybe like 4 or 5 miles an hour. So this is optimum range conditions. So we'll see how this does. So this vehicle is stated to be about 279 miles, I believe, maybe 269. It's high 200s as far as the range, as far as the EPA goes. WLTP, of course, gives it a higher number. It is equipped with the Aero wheels, but they do say AMG, so that seems like a bit of an oxymoron to me, but it's fine. I am curious of your impressions of the EQ styling in general. I have been a bit outspoken of not being a big fan. It's fine, especially on the SUV, like the EQS SUV, EQE SUV. I will take those over the sedan versions with this kind of egg slopey, slippery type shape. Although it is egg-shaped and slippery and slopey, it is a drag coefficient of 0.26, which is not quite as good as the Model X or the Model Y, which are sort of Tesla's version. And it weighs more, a lot more, 5,565 pounds. So considerably more weight than Model X, worse drag coefficient, and smaller battery. This is a 90.2 kilowatt hour usable capacity battery, I believe 96 gross. And yeah, we'll see how far that actually takes us. Not a huge battery, a fairly slippery car, so we'll see if it actually hits that EPA number. I always like to guess, so I will guess it will do, I don't know, 275 miles. They're usually fairly accurate, if not conservative, on their range guesstimations. So we are charging to full. We have just a few minutes left. Also preconditioning the battery, the interior. I'll get onto the interior a bit in terms of our testing standards, but nice spec, beige, this kind of dark blue, which on this angle looks more purple, this angle looks more blue. It's kind of interesting. The color's fine. Be sure to look at the other videos that Kyle's working on with the EQ or the E-Trons, the new one and the old one, because the new one, the Q8, is actually kind of a direct competitor of this, even with pricing. This is just a hair under 100 grand, and that's about what that is. Luxury German big SUVs, not huge, not 3-row, but this is nice and spacious and large for a 2-row. So if my prediction is right, we'll be seeing about 333 watt hours per mile or 3 miles per kilowatt hour. Kyle, what's your predictions on these three beasts? Okay, so Mercedes have been like magically efficient, and then I think Audi went out of their way to make their cars inefficient. As an E-Tron owner, I'm just mad. I don't think the Q8's any more efficient. That'll be interesting to find out in this test. Yeah, because this car at the moment thinks it'll do about 325 miles. Holy shit. EPA is 279. That's a very Mercedes thing. Yep. Okay, I don't actually know the EPAs on these. Yeah. So I should look at that one day for our video. But yeah, that's a Mercedes thing. I think you'll see 300 miles in this. EQS SUV did like 340, 330 something. It just never stopped. Yeah. And this has a much smaller battery pack, similar size. So maybe if you see 300, that'd be incredible. But even if you can get high 200s, that'd be amazing. Yeah. It's so amazing how close this is in price, in specs to the Q8. The Q8 has a bigger battery pack than this. This is what's usable? 90.2. 90. So I have 18 kilowatt hours more usable than you do. I'm 108 or 106 usable, 16 kilowatt hours more. And you need more power for your massaging seats. I don't have that in this. This one's a kind of a lightly spec'd car. Yeah, this has no cooled seats. I got in the car this morning, I was like, what? Mercedes, what are you doing? Jordan Schieffer has to range test this car. Where's the hyper screen? Actually saving range without the hyper screen. Yeah, exactly. Okay, great. Well, we're pretty much good. You're at 98%, so we just a couple more percent left. Then what are you doing up top, by the way? 24, so almost identical to the Q8 up top. The old E-Tron, 50 kilowatts still full. Yeah, just didn't care.
all the cobalt. Apparently now we have to worry about like malpractice mining.
Environment things, yeah.
When they built this
No, back then it was the good old days. So we have reset the trip computer. It currently predicts 347 up to 385 miles of range. Not gonna happen, but I am curious to see how close we get. We also set it to eco mode over here, and in the climate menu, which I will turn on once we're ready to go. I don't want to burn any juice yet. We will set it to actual eco and also the lowest fan setting. So we always set things to as eco as possible. Asterisk. The asterisk is that Mercedes has Eco Plus, which actually disables air conditioning and just tries to do as much as it can with the outside ambient air. I'm not going to do that. That's unrealistic. That's like hypermile mentality. So I'm just doing eco. Not that it really matters, but I also have recuperation set to strong, which you do with the paddles on Mercedes. And we are heading off. Again, we keep climate between 68 and 72 degrees, and on its eco-friendly setting. There goes Kyle in the Q8. And then I'm going to follow suit. There's Andreas getting footage of me, getting footage of him. And we are heading out, leaving the Come and Go gas station / charger in Wellington, heading somewhere northeast. My rear wheel steer is helping me get around some of these corners. But following the E-Tron pair now. And once we get to the highway, I'll explain a bit more of the kind of highway driving that we do on these range tests in case you are new to the channel. If you are new, just go ahead and give a like and subscribe, because this is what we do all the time. Pretty much every EV possible, we do a range test at 70 miles an hour to kind of get a standardized idea of what you can expect range-wise. As far as comparing apples to apples. Obviously, everyone road trips a little bit different. Not everyone's doing actually 70 miles an hour. But with EVs, it's not quite like gas cars. You might want to optimize the range a bit more, drive a bit slower, so you have to charge less often. It all plays into it. But getting onto I-25 north now, and we're just going to ease into the acceleration onto the highway. Now easing up to a 70 miles an hour. It is 70 miles an hour indicated, is 70 miles an hour real GPS speed. Of course, we have some traffic, but they're pretty much all passing us in the left lane because the speed limit is 75. So we're the slow ones over here. What's really interesting, Kyle just called me in his Q8, which has almost the same EPA range. This EQE SUV is 279. Might be 269, I need to double check that. But his is 285, so more EPA range. But on a full state of charge, it says that he is predicting low 200s, like 220. Mine's predicting almost 320. So the prediction is completely separate of the EPA range, which is interesting. On either side, like mine's predicting more, his predicting less. The shade is closed, I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but anything I can do to make it a little bit more efficient. I also have no ventilated seats, which is sad. Not that I can use them anyways. We don't use any sort of additional elements in our range test, but I have heated seats, heated steering wheel. Both of those are turned off. They have ventilated seats also, and massaging seats, which they also have turned off.
Watch out.
I'm sure.
Vehicle on shoulder ahead.
Whoa, okay, Waze, thanks. We don't navigate back to the charger. Actually, I don't. Mine has vehicle preconditioning. So if I navigate to a charger, it would try to optimize the battery pack for fast charging, which is good for road trips, but that will mess with my potential efficiency. So not going to navigate to a charger, not going to do any sort of preconditioning, and we're just going to keep on going. What we do is check in every 75%, 50%, 25%, all the major intervals with kind of our status, our efficiency. So we're just kind of getting started. I'm at just over 2 miles per kilowatt hour right now, or high 400s as far as watt hours per mile. Right, so 75% as promised. Here's your update. 75% state of charge is what we just crossed over. Predicting 200, just under 250 miles remaining, which is pretty wild. We have done 80 miles, so we are roughly on track for 300 total miles, actually a hair over, which is very impressive, honestly. Our efficiency is 287 watt hours per mile, which is almost exactly 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour. What's really interesting is Kyle up there in the Q8 E-Tron 55 has the exact same state of charge as I do. We are tracking identically as far as state of charge, but he is doing that with a battery that is roughly 10 to 15% bigger. What that means is that I am considerably more efficient. not a huge amount, but I am more efficient. I'm doing the same exact mileage with less power effectively. Again, mine's about 90 kilowatt hours, his is over 100. And we're tracking with the same state of charge. His efficiency, I think, is about the high twos, like 2.8 or so. Is last time he told me. I think Alyssa is notably less. She has less range, less state of charge. So we knew her car would go much less far, but yeah, Audi made the battery pack bigger on those. Go watch those videos if you want the whole story on those cars. But interesting comparison between these competitors of the new Audi Q8 E-Tron SUV and this EQE SUV. Another interesting tidbit is that Kyle is about 100 pounds less than me in the Q8. This is 55.65 is how much this EQE SUV weighs. A lot. It is heavy. Weighs, again, more than even the Model X, and has a smaller battery than the Model X, and the worst drag coefficient than the Model X, but still seems to be tracking for impressive range. The drag coefficient of this is 0.26. Kyle's E-Tron is 0.27, so this is why it's fun to do these tests identically on the same day. I mean, we've done, cars different days and stuff, but with identical conditions, pretty fascinating stuff. There goes Alyssa. Out with the old and with the new. Also, nice. We are cruising towards 66.7% state charge, which is a third of the battery. And yeah, efficiency just keeps getting better. This really is fantastic. Again, the wind is very subtle, not quite non-existent. It is a maybe 5 mile an hour tailwind, so technically that'll be a headwind on the way back, which we do prefer to a crosswind because that means we effectively cancel it out more or less. But yeah, Alyssa is gone, so just these E-Trons. Not sure when exactly Kyle wants to turn around, but I'm guessing we're still tracking with the same state of charge. All right, Kyle has made the executive decision to turn around right up here, which is at 60% state of charge. I think we'll have quite a bit left over. My vote was exit 69, so another 10 miles. That would have added 20 miles round trip. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe he's right, because what has been a tiny tailwind will now be a tiny headwind. And we have to account for whatever was down elevation is back up, etc., etc. And we can always do more loops on I-25 back closer to Wellington. And yeah, we're still at just over 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour, or 272 watt hours per mile if you want to be a bit more granular. Easing back up to speed yet again, which won't be hard because we're literally behind a semi-truck, so that'll keep us accountable. Pretty boring for us. I'm glad you guys can watch the condensed version of this, but Kyle and I are still tracking to be exactly the same state of charge. We are both at 61% right now, turning around. Checking in at 50% state of charge. Finally, God, this thing won't die. It's just so efficient. Our efficiency has actually gone down a little bit because we are, again, into the headwind slightly. It's very little wind, like 5 miles an hour, but that still makes a little bit of a difference. So we are back down to 285 watt hours per mile. And yeah, we've done 160 miles. It claims 168 miles left, so that's probably pretty accurate. But I expect to see this number go down faster because of the negative effect on efficiency going into the wind versus a tailwind on the way out here. But I will say this thing seems to have an edge because it's getting the same range as his with a smaller battery and more weight, which is pretty wild. And 25% state of charge. We have done 224 miles, claims 75 miles left. So right about 300, which is just insanely impressive over EPA. Do you hear that, Tesla? Kyle is right behind me there in the E-Tron, and he also has the same state of charge, although his trip planner says that he's going to arrive back with 8%, so that's a little interesting. You see I have my automatic lane change, which is really cool, and it's cool, but also will randomly change lanes when I didn't want it to, and yeah, it does sometimes have a mind of its own, but in general works really well. Fantastic lane centering. This is a road trip machine, honestly. I would absolutely road trip this across the country without question. Really decent charging, nothing crazy. It's not Taycan charging, but it's also better than like the ID4 and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm pretty thrilled with it, and I'm comfortable. No massaging seats, that's a slight downside. If I was getting the EQE 500, I would definitely option it a little bit better, but honestly can't complain too much. What do you guys think of the interior? Fairly elegant and stately, which is along the branding of Mercedes. I kind of like, it's pretty handsome with the dark blue up top. All this wood, in case you forgot what you're driving, there's a million Mercedes like stars, or the inset of the star, I guess, but I don't know, very, very nice. Yeah, typical Mercedes. Some things feel a bit cheap, but maybe they're things you're not meant to touch anyways. All the touch points feel very nice. And I don't know if you've seen much of the displays. You can of course switch these to your navigation, driver assistance, which is awesome, and it'll show the cars around you, which there's no cars currently around me. And you even have off-road. I would love to see someone take an EQS or EQE SUV off-road. Never seen that. I can't even imagine it. But they have little images of what you would look like on, say, the desert. So you can see your pitch and yaw angle and all that fun stuff for your off-road adventures. I like the classic display. Sport and understated are fine too, but classic gives me all the information I need for this. And what we will see lower down the battery pack is we'll actually start seeing this power meter being cut off. So that's important to see, I think, if you're low state of charge. But it literally just tried to change lanes into the construction cones automatically, so maybe it's not the best driver assistance system, but I'll still take it over none at all. On typical highways with no construction, it's like flawless. This just in, we crossed into Colorado, and I am at 18% state of charge. Kyle is at 16%, so it's turning out that I am a bit, well, we already knew I was more efficient, but I am like consistently more. He has more battery. Oh, there the car is lane changing for me. I didn't even prompt it to do that. Also, by the way, Mercedes does, what is it? Haptic, capacitive, that's the word. Capacitive wheel for the driver assistance, which is the proper way to do it. I don't have to apply torque to the wheel, which can kind of make the car slightly unsteady, depending on how sensitive cars are. All I have to do is keep my hand on the wheel and it knows I'm there, which is fantastic. Proper way to do it. But anyways, yeah, with a smaller battery and more weight, I am going farther than Kyle will. I guess the Mercedes is the way to go, unless you care about looks. Then by all means, please choose the E-Tron over this ugly bean. Okay, so the car just tried to do a lane change into the shoulder and then freaked out when I tried to cancel it, and now it's telling me to take a break. I think this car needs a coffee break. Good grief. All right, passing our normal exit of Wellington, I'm going to keep going. Kyle is too. He's right behind me still. We're going to try to get to the next exit and turn around at that point. And then I will head back north to 10 miles north of Wellington, turn around from there. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, getting down to the wire for him maybe, but it feels like I have a ways to go. The car says I can do another 43 miles, which is pretty crazy. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. This is a good loop down here to keep doing if we need to, because we can keep going at highway speeds, but the exits are close enough together that we can bail if we absolutely have to. All right, we are hitting our turnaround point. My power is not cut yet because I'm still not down to the single digits yet. So there we go. Just hit the reserve level charge, high voltage battery, which you get when you hit 10% state of charge in EQ vehicles. So we are going back up north to exit 288. This is actually turning out to be pretty good. I think for me, Kyle might be pushing it a bit, but what would an out-of-spec range test be without a little bit of drama? So I'm curious to see if his E-Tron makes it. He is showing slightly less state of charge than me. The super loud beep occurred, warning me that only 3 charging stations are within range, and it wants to show me them. I should be fine. I have 14 miles to my destination, 22 miles estimated range. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. There we go, just did my final turnaround, and we have the reserve level charge high voltage battery again because I just hit 5% state of charge. So we are kind of on our final stretch to the destination. 9.5 miles to go. It says I can do 15 miles. Maybe if I split the difference, I'll hit exactly 13 miles, which is 300 miles. That's my goal. I have already passed my estimate of 275, so yeah, this thing slays. It's ugly, but it does it well. But I've been on the road for 4 hours, 20 minutes. Nice. And yeah, this is the king of the 3 SUVs we just tested. We knew Alyssa's E-Tron would lose because it's older, but still, I'd probably pick that one over this, even with its limited range, because just the features and the driving, and I like how E-Trons drive. All right, the max power thing has showed up, which shows me what it'll let me accelerate to. Like if I was going to try to floor right now, it would only give me 63, 62. It's shrinking fairly quickly. But that finally shows up when you hit below 5% state of charge. So we are only 2 miles away from our exit and still 11 miles quoted range. So I may hit that frontage road. There's Kyle on his final approach in the E-Tron. At least that's my working theory. I still have a little bit more juice to burn. So we're on the frontage road now, which means we can do very close to highway speeds without actually being on the highway, so we can turn around if we absolutely have to. But I have power is cut below 50% now, which seems like there might still be a lot of power, but that's effectively what, less than 200 horsepower in a car that weighs well over twice as much as my car at home. Good for Mercedes, and they're consistent with this. All of the EQ products we've been testing on range test just always exceed expectations. They exceed their numbers on paper, at least the EPA. I don't remember what the WLTP is on this. I'll check on that, but yeah, we're just gonna keep doing this frontage road for a bit longer because we got juice to burn, baby. There we go, finally got the turtle. And that keeps happening, and it drives me nuts. It's the loudest bong I've ever heard in my life. And we are approaching the charger. It says we have 1 mile remaining, 1% state of charge. Drive power reduced. Drive power has been reduced for a while. I don't know where that warning's been, but I guess you finally get the turtle when you hit 1 mile estimated range. So we're gonna be pulling right in here at nearly the bottom of the pack. I don't really want to risk being stranded, but yeah, we've basically used it all, folks. Right, you can't see it, but we did 304 miles. Time to charge this baby. That's a pretty good range, if I do say so myself. Maybe it's all about these Aero wheels. I don't know why it outdid that so much, but it did. So 304 miles, that's pretty good. Beat the E-Tron by 14 miles-ish.
Well, that was the interesting part. I guess I did a little bit more low-speed driving at the end.
Yeah.
Because you went up the highway.
Yeah,
But let's just quantify that really quick, because this is really EQE versus Q8,
yeah,
if you will. You have, how much smaller battery pack was it?
I have 90 usable.
90, and I have 18 kilowatt hours more, 16 kilowatt hours more.
So a substantially bigger battery.
And you weigh more.
I weigh more. And somehow I beat you.
Mercedes efficiency is magic. This is what they are so efficient for the cars. Audi went out of their way, like I said, to make it inefficient. We were talking on the phone. We're like, where is Audi making the electricity go?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I don't know. This thing works. So if you care about range and efficiency, buy this.
Yes.
If you care about looks at all.
And I think driving the
and driving dynamics. Yeah, there's a lot of things I like about the E-Tron better.
Personally, I would get the E-Tron.
You have an E-Tron.
I have an E-Tron, yeah, okay. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so go watch his video on that range test. But that's your EQE SUV range test. The 500 did great. Good power, honestly. Like, it's a great car. I would just spec it more personally. But hey, it's a Mercedes. If you're curious, the tires on this thing, it is a square setup, 255s all around, which is kind of surprising, but these are cross range Discover, kind of a weird Cooper. Yeah, nothing screams awesome to me about that, but I'm sure they're EV efficient and probably have the foam padding inside to quiet down the range. This thing does drive pretty quietly on the highway, which is nice, although not quite as nice as I would hope. Maybe it's because I'm thinking in terms of S-Class. This is obviously no S-Class or G-Class, but still a nice ride. But tires, can't really complain. They do their job on these kind of ugly eco wheels.
My nice Audi has Continental tires. We got pops from the Golf R over here. I thought it was Timon pulling up for a second.
It could be, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think I have a more premium tire brand.
Your wheels look better, your tires look better.
I'm not against Cooper Tire.
Yeah.
If they ever want to sponsor us, let's remove this clip.
Yeah. We can do that after the fact on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's true.
Afterwards. But I still think Continental sounds more premium.
Yes, but I went further.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Gonna plug it in now. That's been your range test at 70 miles an hour, which I did 70 pretty much the entire way, which is fantastic. So good on you, Mercedes, but you're ugly. Hey, Mercedes.
How can I help?
I'm sorry.
You are excused.